Welcome, Traceable Designers. Today we're making the straight Cornice style valance. We'll be featuring a second contrast fabric layer to create a modern style design for this straight Cornice valance. You will use the straight style valance design form, which is included in the multi-style Cornice valance kit, in the single style straight valance kit, and also in the deluxe No-Sew Master Decorator kit. This valance is a single panel design. It does require exact measuring, so once you have hung your rod, you'll measure from the outside bracket to the outside bracket to get the exact size for the finished valance. To size your fabric, make sure you have excess on the bottom and at least 4 inches above the 13.5 inch center panel line. So you'll just measure across your fabric, marking where you're going to position your lining. So you'll measure across from the bottom up, and then pull out your fusible backing with the glue side facing down, no steam on your iron. Go ahead and anchor that along your marks on the top, and then just cut off the excess so you don't extend beyond the edges. And then using a sweeping motion, just secure your backing to the fabric. Once that has completely cooled, you'll be able to pull that off and then add your lining. So to add your lining, you'll just go right across the top edge of the glue and extend your fabric beyond the edges so that you've completely covered the back side of the fabric with lining, and then just fuse that lining down to the back side of the fabric. Next, fold your fabric section in half with the lining side facing out, and for this custom size, you'll be measuring from the fold over to the 50% width of your finished valance. So mine's a 39-inch panel, so I'm marking 19.5 inches. That is going to indicate the positioning line for the right side of my design form. I'm also aligning the center panel top edge along the top edge of my lining. So then just trace around the upper section, the rod pocket section, around the edge and ending at the folded edge of the fabric. Then to straighten out your rod pocket, pick one of the lines to align along your folded edge, and then you'll just be tracing across the top of the design form to straighten that rod pocket out so it's nice and even when you fold it over to create the pocket. Then just follow the line to cut off the excess to straighten out your pocket. Then starting on the folded edge, follow around the trace line to cut out your complete valance. Make sure you have nice curve around the edge and up across your rod pocket area. Next, you'll size your contrast insert fabric. I'm using one that's about the same size as my base fabric, and it's going to fall just above the lining side, so you will have just a piece on each edge. You're going to attach your fusible backing to the back side of the fabric, and you're just going to fold that in half, and then just use any sizing line because you're only using a piece of this fabric section on each end, and then just trace your design form and cut out the exact same shape as your base. But when it comes to the sizing, this is a matter of personal preference. So just align it on each side, fold the fabric section over, work with it until you find the proper sizing that you like, and then you'll just cut your fabric sections. The thing that is important though is that your fabric extends above the lining by about 1.5 inches. You want that to fold over your rod when you're making your rod pocket. So make sure that you've got some excess fabric, not too much, just enough to go above the lining. Cut both sides. You can work with the fabric section until you like what you see. So if you size it and then you put it down and you think it needs to be a little bit smaller, just keep working with it and adjusting it, just making sure that you do have some fabric extending above the lining onto the rod pocket section. So once you get both of your pieces sized, then you'll be ready to fuse those in place. So just remove the paper once it's cooled, and then you'll be able to position those over your base. Put the shiny side of the paper facing up behind the fabric section, so if it extends over at all, you don't glue it to your ironing board, and then just carefully fuse both sides in place, making sure that they've extended above your lining a little bit, and double check them to make sure they're completely fused before you move on to the rod pocket. To make your rod pocket, you'll fold your first fabric section over and do not overlap onto the lining, and then just iron that down. Then you're going to cut a piece of fusible backing to attach to the outside of the fabric, making sure not to overlap beyond the edge. And then when that's cooled, pull the paper off and then pull your pocket taunt across the top of your lining and fuse that down, moving across the pocket until it's secured. Now fold your fabric section in half and measure down to make sure it's completely even. If you are uneven on the bottom, you're going to just mark that off and then position the design form along your marks and then just trace the straight line. You want to make sure it's nice and straight across the bottom of your panel. Then just follow the line to cut off the excess, and we'll move on to trim. I'm using a section of ribbon to cover the break between the two fabric sections. I'm also going to fuse the ribbon down, so I'm going to cut pieces of fusible backing to add to the back of my ribbon, because I find this is a cleaner finish rather than using a glue which can show through the ribbon strips. So cut your sections to size, and then you will be removing the paper from the back of the ribbon and then just fusing that across the top. Do not overheat. Use just a nice sweep across, and don't overdo it, otherwise you may find that you're buckling or causing a buckle in the fabric. So then once you're finished, just flip that over the top of your rod pocket and fuse that down and cut off the excess ribbon from the bottom. We're going to move on to our edge trim. I'm using a 3/8 inch GIMP trim and Unique Stitch, which is a glue, that's a tube glue. So run your trim right under your iron to make sure it's nice and straight before you begin, and then extend your trim a little bit above the top edge of your rod pocket. Using the tube glue is really easy. Just run a little strip along the edge and then pull your trim section taut. That makes it nice and straight, and then follow the curve around the bottom and then straight across the bottom. Again, I like to do the long pieces because you can pull it taut, get it very straight and even, and then just glue that trim all the way around the panel and secure it behind the rod pocket. Then just slip the curtain rod right into the pocket, and then you'll be ready to hang your beautiful new straight style Cornice Valance. Thank you for joining me, Traceable Designers, and remember, you can always make your mark with Traceable Designer.